Welcome to 50 Days to Rebuild. Basically, this is a challenge that I've set for myself where I'll be doing 50 minutes of exercise every day, followed by 50 pages of one of my physio books. Might not sound like much, but I guess those books are quite large and very jargon heavy, so I'm going to see how that goes. Basically, the point of this challenge is just to give myself an opportunity to actually make some real headway on my myriad of injuries and dysfunctions. So I think that if I actually just read through all of this different physio content, that I can essentially educate myself beyond the point of anybody that I've ever seen, and actually make some real progress with those injuries. So I guess first I'll just talk about the different exercises that I ran through today. So I always do the McGill Big Three. I thought I'd progressed quite well through this, but having rewatched, I'm seeing that my side plank roll is quite abysmal. That looks quite terrifying on, I guess, like the disjunction between my lat and the rest of my core. That was a bit scary, and also I'm not really fully rotating at all. It's more of like a fake roll. So definitely well worth recording myself for that. Then the other thing that I was really noticing was just in the bird dog that when my left arm came up into flexion, it barely did. It was more of an abduction movement. Just something to try and focus on and improve. Again, yeah, just already seeing some issues to address from recording, so that's cool. So beyond that, I just really want to discuss what I've learned from reading these different physio books. So I've started with Anatomy Trains to kick off the challenge. This is a book about the different fascial pathways through the body. So really expanding the anatomical knowledge that I have. It's by Thomas Myers. I think it was just like a highly recommended book, so I've started on that. I guess breaking it down, it essentially argues that rather than looking at muscles individually, which is how I've sort of always looked at them from anatomy texts that I've read, origin and insertion, is that we need to look at it as a continuity, like a train, or a chain is another way of conceptualizing it. That if we tension one end, we're going to tension the other end, and it sort of expands and I guess gives more direction to the idea of everything is connected, like there's something more to work from. So it sort of starts by going through the superficial backline, so essentially like the quite shallow connected layer on the back, really working from the bottom of the feet up through to the hips, and then up through the erector spine into the neck and all the way over to the brow. Really quite beautiful to see the different transmission of forces that are available in just that fascial connection. So I guess what I've learned is that the role of this is essentially to create extension, right, through the whole body. And again, if we're arguing that one part of that chain or train gets interrupted, we get issues somewhere else. So probably the most related to me that I saw and what I read was that if your heel bone, if you got tight through this superficial backline, that your heel bone, your calcaneus, could actually move forward. And they were explaining that essentially the heel bone acts as a fulcrum. So if the heel bone comes forward, you lose your ability to have ankle dorsiflexion. So basically your knee coming over your toe, which is something that I really struggle with. What was quite interesting about this calcaneus moving forward is that they said that the whole trickle-down domino effect of this is that you start getting hyperextension of the knees, hyperextension of the low back, sort of stomach protruding outwards, rounded over posture, in the upper back. I found that all very fascinating because I've had all of those symptoms. I've had the hyperextended knees, the lack of ankle range of motion, the lumbar hyperextension, and no core stability. So it could be an issue where basically this has gotten tight in me. So yeah, that's really cool. The other thing that I thought was quite fascinating, that I guess in hindsight makes quite a bit of logical common sense, is that when we have like an arching forward, so a kyphosis, essentially what that is it's a widening of the tissue. It's moving laterally. and then adhering to some other structures. Whereas when we have a lordosis, so like hyperextension, for example, of the low spine, basically all of the fibers are moving medially, they're coming in. Then learned about the superficial front line. I won't try and bore everybody with the actual attachment sites, but basically it works from the top of the foot up into the neck, like the mastoid process and the scalp. What's probably the most interesting about that whole chapter, which discussed the whole line, wasn't the line itself, although that was intriguing. It was just one random piece of information that was dropped, which was that if you have an issue on either line, so say the front line's tight, then there's going to be issues in the back line and vice versa. And the way that that's going to compensate is one's going to get eccentrically tight, so a lengthening, and the other is going to get concentrically tight, so a shortening. And that we shouldn't address the concentric side, or maybe that we shouldn't, not that we shouldn't address it, but that we should focus on the eccentric side. Wasn't much justification behind that, but if that's true, that changes how I approach any kind of manual release completely. The other really important thing here was that if we have an issue on one side, we're essentially having to approach it from the other. This isn't the first time I've heard this topic, but probably the first time I heard it explained in this sort of theoretical way. Lastly, just discussing how emotion affects posture, so that fear is almost completely flexion based. So if we have sort of like chronic stress, fear, or just any negative emotion, anger, it's sort of expressed in this flexed posture, this rounded forward, head forward posture that leads to a lot of pain. So that was just something worth considering as another modulator of posture and therefore pain. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It was a hell of a thing to get through those 50 pages. But I'll do the same thing tomorrow and the day after that. So yeah, hopefully we make some good progress.